Welcome to Storytime Part 1. While getting in my car yesterday at 4 a.m., a young man suddenly ran towards me from across the street and screamed that he had been human trafficked and needed help. Something very bizarre happened to me yesterday morning. After hanging out with a friend Friday night, we decided to wrap it up as it was getting late. So, we went to the garage so I could drive him home. Almost immediately as the garage door went up, a man walking across the street sprinted at us on sight and screamed help. I immediately went into fight or flight mode, opened my car door and grabbed my stun gun from the glove box as my friend told him to stop. The guy saw it and stopped approaching and then begged us again to help him. He was young, probably early 20s. And his clothes were covered in mud and filth. He was extremely drunk. He absolutely reeked of booze. My friend asked him to calm down and explain himself, and he took a second to sit on the front step and catch his breath. He explained that he believed he had just escaped a human trafficking attempt. He was out drinking with his friends when he said he was jumped suddenly by several guys and thrown into a car. He said he passed out at that point and woke up later in a completely different car all alone. He exited the car, which he said was parked in front of some abandoned factory or something, and just started running. He claimed that as he was running, several men started to chase him and yell for him to come back, but he successfully escaped when he ran into a nearby wooded area. He said that as he hid in the woods for a while, the men continued screaming his name and asking where he was. He then left the woods and started walking down the highway, all the way out of the city into the suburbs. He said he had been walking for almost 5 hours. He told us his phone was dead and he had no money, so he asked if we could give him a ride home. We asked him where he lived and the address he gave was almost a 2-hour drive away. So, we told him that we couldn't. Suddenly the guy became enraged. He started screaming curse words at the top of his lungs and stomping at the ground. Then he dropped to his knees and started bawling his eyes out. He kept repeating please over and over for a few seconds. I told him frankly that if he believes he escaped some sort of kidnapping attempt, that we should call the police. He had no interest and just repeated that he wanted to go home and forget about all this. My friend told him we could call him an Uber to get him home, and he agreed. But he begged us to wait with him for the Uber in case the guys who were chasing him came back. Amazingly, we found an Uber, willing to drive him all the way back to his home at 4 in the morning. We waited about 20 minutes for the Uber to arrive. The guy attempted to repeat his story for us while we waited, but at this point he couldn't stop crying. He said he thought he was going to die. To my sober mind, it seemed that he hadn't escaped a human trafficking or kidnapping attempt, but he very likely escaped from his friends who he was drinking with. I'm guessing the guys who jumped him were his friends and they were just putting their blackout drunk friend in the car. The different car he woke up in was probably just another friend's car, and they chased him after he got out because he was drunk and running off into the night, and they didn't want him to get hurt. The kid still had his phone, keys, wallet, and AirPods, so whoever he was jumped by had no interest in his valuables. I tried to explain my theory of his night's events to him, and again the guy suddenly became extremely enraged, like a switch was flipped. He screamed that he was positive that these men weren't his friends, that we weren't there and didn't see what he saw. I dropped it because the guy seemed unstable, and I just wanted him gone so I could drive my friend home and go to sleep. The Uber arrived and he again broke down crying, thanking us so much for helping him. He got in and we told the driver that the guy wasn't well and needed to be brought home safe. They drove off and thankfully this stressful event was over. I don't personally believe the guy's story about being kidnapped, but I suppose it's not impossible. I live in the US, in a very nice city. These kind of crimes can happen anywhere, but it still seems like an unlikely thing to happen in my area. While driving my friend home, we talked about it for a bit. For example, We both agreed that had either of us been alone and the guy approached the situation, would have played out much differently. I would have ran back in my house immediately and called the cops. Call me heartless or a coward, but I have a kid, so her safety comes first. A strange man ran at me at 4 a.m. as I was getting in my car. There's very few good reasons that would ever be happening. Also, while he was obviously not thinking too clearly, due to his intoxication, had he ran down someone else, he might have gotten shot. I'm amazed he wasn't hurt walking down the highway for 5 hours. Not sure what really happened to the kid, but regardless, I guess we were able to get him home safe. Hope you enjoyed the story. The credits from Reddit. And like and sub for more.